This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Doviet. Tonight we're taking your calls and questions all about personal injury. Personal injury cases can be anything from a car accident, can be a fall that causes an injury, could be a medical mistake that causes you an injury. So calling your questions tonight, we're taking questions on any kind of personal injury. The 31 Law Call number 256-536-0077. You can also email questions. You can email a question on any legal topic any day of the week. You just send it to lawcall@waytv.com. And when we get to a show that's on point, we pull some out. We've got some of your email questions tonight. We've got with us Michael Timberlake and Heath Brooks, both from Timberlake and League, to answer questions about personal injuries. And you guys do personal injury cases all day, every day. So
Right.
you see these kind of things.
Yeah, this is our wheelhouse. This is what we know. We do it on a daily basis. We pretty much have seen it, heard it, and handled it for
No
in 27
surprises.
years of doing this.
Okay, so let's throw some video at you. We always like to bring you make the law call. We pulled some video off of YouTube, and we've got a couple of different snowy. There's the first one. And then the spin out after that. So this guy didn't cause that accident. Somebody veering into his lane. We're going to see it again. So this is the same accident.
Gotcha. Okay.
Somebody's coming at him.
He's doing all right, and then he tries
And
to
then
avoid
this.
it.
Okay, but we've got more after this one.
Ah, okay. So basically, everybody has a responsibility to operate their vehicle safely for the conditions that are present. So you don't necessarily, it's not legal necessarily to go to the speed limit if the road conditions don't allow it. Oh!
And be alert every time, because, yeah, you think, all right, we're stopped and somebody's going to go around us. No, not necessarily.
Yeah. So the first situation looks like one driver's in his lane, doing what they're supposed to be doing. Another driver is coming into his lane and he tries to avoid it. So I think that's the driver that's coming the opposite direction would be, would cause, that problem more than anything else.
Okay.
Now Heath is an expert at rear end collisions. What do you think about that Heatherwin, Heath?
I mean, here's the deal. If you're driving safe for the conditions, it's icy outside, but you're still driving safely, even if you start sliding, run into another car, you may get a little bit of a lien. You may not have some responsibility there because if you're being safe, but the other side of that coin is, if you're out there on an icy condition and you can't hold the road and you hurt somebody, you could be responsible. Just be very careful.
Right. And on the other one, somebody's stopped on the side of the road, regardless of the weather conditions. Basically the ideal thing would be for them to get all the way off the road. But if the vehicle's not able to get all the way off the road and is stopped in the roadway with the proper safety, precautions made, everybody's got to, you have to look out for emergency hazards. And if you're coming up on something like that fast, that's probably going to be a problem for you.
Let's talk a little bit about, no, go ahead, Heath.
I was going to tell you, I've seen that before. We've seen it all, but I've seen that kind of scenario, particularly with a commercial vehicle. I've seen it where a commercial vehicle, like a big box truck, tries to get all the way off the road, but part of their truck is still in the road. And then you got, maybe it's dark outside, you got a hill, somebody's coming around, they can't see the truck because that truck doesn't have cones out behind it or their flashers on, and then an impact occurs. The truck's not able to get all the way over, but there are some precautions you can take to alert other motorists that you are in a disabled condition. As a motorist, we got a duty to keep a proper lookout, but as a disabled vehicle, you have a responsibility to ensure that people can discover your disability. So, it kind of goes both ways in that scenario.
But absolutely, and the bigger the truck, the harder it is for them to get all the way off the road, the bigger the obligation or duty they have to try to do things to make safe, which is, like you said, cones or a lookout or something in addition to alert people of the problem.
Okay, in the state of Alabama, our law is a little bit different, and when people are in accidents and things, we tend to be awfully nice, and we tend to say things that may get us in trouble, right? We tend to say things like, well, maybe I was going a little bit too fast, but it was the other guy's fault mostly.
Right.
Talk about how dangerous that is to say in the state of Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, we've had situations, and I've had in particular cases where your clients are just trying to be nice and understand, and they're like, well, I don't know if they did anything wrong, they just hit me. or it was just an accident. It's just one of those things. Well, you know, in Alabama, what you end up with a situation is that can be used against you because Alabama is a contributory negligent state. So that if anybody can blame any portion of an incident on you, regardless whether it's a car wreck or a fall or some other type of situation, if they can say, look, the injured party contributed in some way to this incident, then it's an absolute bar on recovery. You can't recover anything. Now, Tennessee's a little bit different. Heath does some work in Tennessee. What's it like up there?
I do. It's a comparative standard, meaning that if you are injured and you are 10% negligent in causing your own injury, and a jury finds in your way, then your verdict, your damages verdict, could be reduced by your 10%. Now, there is a qualification for that. If you are over 50% negligent in causing your own injury, you can't recover anything. But one of the big things Michael and I tell everybody, and one of the ways that people get in trouble, is if they get on the phone with the insurance company. And the insurance company, that they are trying to get folks to admit to some wrongful conduct in Alabama. So they may say, well, you know, are you sure you weren't going 57 or 58 if the speed limit's 55? And you're not knowing any better. Well, you know, man, I may have been gone 57, 58, 59 even. Well, now you could be said to be contributory negligent for your own injury, and you can't recover a penny in Alabama. So be very careful about talking to insurance companies, particularly in the state of Alabama when you're dealing with contributory negligence.
See, and people many times just trying to be kind and take a little responsibility, and we're not saying lie about it, but talk to a lawyer before you talk to the insurance company.
It's just, you want to make sure you understand what your situation is, what your rights are, what your obligations are before you start talking to an insurance company. So, take the time to talk to a lawyer. Most lawyer firms like our firms will talk to you for free, either over the phone or in person, just to understand the rights. And then you can kind of figure out where you want to go from there, but make sure you understand what you're doing before you start talking to an insurance company.
We've got an email question. This came in from Candace. Candace wrote, in a wreck, and the police report said no one is injured. I didn't call an ambulance because I felt okay, and that's expensive. But later that night I started to hurt, so I went to the ER in a friend's car. Is that going to be a problem? Okay, does that make it look like she's not really injured? Is that a contributory negligence flag or something there?
It happens all the time.
All the time. That's what Michael and I, we see this all the time. When your adrenaline's going, you feel no pain after a wreck, and then later everything starts calming down. You start breathing a little deeper, and your neck and your back start hurting, or you feel pain in your leg. And it can be hours, it can be days after the collision when you really start feeling pain and have to go to the doctor. So that's not uncommon at all. One of the things that we see is a police officer, if they don't identify an injury at the scene, they may put on the police report there are no injuries, or may not have taken the time to really talk to folks to see if they had any soreness or anything like that. But the wonderful thing about the state of Alabama is that police reports are not admissible as evidence in a jury trial. So, there is some saving grace there.
Yeah. Well, and even if you don't go to the hospital immediately, or if you don't seek medical attention immediately, if it comes on, within hours or within days, just make sure you go to the doctor and document it and say, look, I was in this wreck. I thought I was okay. I started to get worse and worse and worse. And then I got worse to the point where I felt like I needed to seek medical attention. And that's not going to be an issue. Now, if you wait 30 days or 45 days or 90 days, that becomes much more of an issue because it's much harder for us to relate those types of complaints to a remote incident.
We've got callers waiting. We've got Rhondia on the line with a question from Huntsville. Hi, Rhondia. I think I understand your daughter got injured with something. What happened?
That's right. She was doing pyrotechnics at a Mississippi game.
Okay.
And while she was setting up, she got hit in the head with a football.
Was it
That-
the automatic football thrower or something? It wasn't even a real person.
That's right.
Yeah,
Oh gosh.
not even a real person throwing it. How
No
bad were
way.
her injuries?
No. And she was afraid that since she was in Mississippi, that she would be left behind. No way I would left her left behind. But anyway,
Do I understand
has
she's trying
had-
to get workers' comp out of this? Is she?
she has.
She has gotten workers' comp. Okay, good.
Yeah, but now, can we sue Mississippi State?
Okay. Let's
Okay,
talk
yeah.
about it. So she's
Yeah.
there working. She's there
Right,
working.
right. Yeah, that's a great question. So if you're working for someone, and this is Mississippi, you know, we practice in Alabama, but most states are similar. If you are working on the job for someone, and your employer or a co-employee causes an injury as a result of something that they did that was careless, or just something they did that happened, you're entitled to workers' compensation benefits. Workers' compensation is a statutory scheme that sets up, how much you're entitled to per week for the time period that you're off work, how much you may be entitled to for disability in the future, and it also provides that your medical benefits are paid for. You are not entitled to anything for pain and suffering or avocational, other than work-related type of losses or mental anguish or any kind of permanent injury that we typically see in personal injury cases. So your sole remedy in that situation is going to be workers' compensation benefits, unless you can identify some third party that's not associated with Mississippi State or whoever the employer was that was responsible for your injuries. If you were just a spectator at the game, and you got hit with a football, that's a little bit different story.
Okay.
Heath,
Yeah,
what's that all about?
We've dealt with these issues before. When you go into a sporting event and you get hit by a baseball at a sporting event, you have a license to be there, and a license doesn't afford you the same protection as if you were what's called an invitee going into a big box store or going into the supermarket or something like that. So really, when you go to a sporting event, you waive a lot of your rights in the event that you get injured in that sporting event by the nature of the sport. In other words, if a football hits you in a football game, a baseball hits you in a baseball game, a bat hits you in a baseball game, you're not going to have a claim against the actual baseball team or the stadium for those injuries, because you've waived a lot of your rights when you're granted a license to go in.
So Rondia's daughter working there is in a different category from that. So interesting how the different people, the exact same thing could happen at the exact same place, but depending on what your purpose is for being there,
Sure,
you've got different outcomes.
Well, and I think that
And
who caused the injury, and that's what in her
Exactly.
situation I would encourage her to talk to, seek legal advice in that situation, because there may be some particular circumstance in that, and especially involving if it was, she said, pyrotechnics. There can be something under Mississippi law that would allow her to recover outside of workers' comp.
Okay, they're telling us to take a break. We're going to take a break. Be right back answering more of your questions all about personal injuries. Stay with us.
You're watching WAAY 31 Law Call, where lawyers come to help. Your rights, your calls, live. Hosted by family law attorney Sharon Doviet, with the personal injury attorneys of one of the Valley's most respected law firms, Timberlake and League. Featuring the knowledge of managing partner Michael Timberlake, with millions of dollars awarded to his clients. And the experience of attorney Will League, a strong courtroom fighter known for his commitment to winning. And the fellow partners of Timberlake and League, Heath Brooks and William Meservey. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Welcome back to 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Doviet. Tonight we're answering calls and questions all about personal injury cases. We've got with us Michael Timberlake and Heath Brooks, both from Timberlake and League. Okay, if somebody invites you to drive their car, you drive their car and you wreck the car, whose insurance covers it?
This is something that Heath and I had, we had a very special call this week that somebody wanted to know, if their son was driving someone else's car, whose insurance comes into play.
Okay.
Well, in Alabama, insurance follows the vehicle. So if you're driving someone else's car, and as long as it's with permission, then the insurance on that vehicle is going to cover you first, and then your insurance coverage is going to cover you second.
Even if it's something like something fancy.
Yeah, I mean, if it's really fancy, you know, that's when you can be, you know, kind of get really kind of concerned about
fancy.
your insurance. So
What is that?
that appears to be a Corvette.
Who's driving that Corvette?
Bill Jr. is driving the Corvette.
I hope that he got to prom safely and right back home safely. That is a beautiful car.
And it's all good.
We didn't hear anything.
Yeah,
we didn't hear any bad reports.
We didn't get to find out whether or not Bill Jr.'s dad has insurance has to pony up as well as the owner for the vehicle.
Very nice. I love it. Okay, we were talking before about police reports, and I think we kind of mentioned police reports are usually not admissible.
Correct.
Okay, what do you mean by
That's
that? Does that mean we're going to talk about them in court? We're not going to talk about them in court? What does that mean? A caller wanted to know.
Right. Basically, a police report is information that a police officer takes down from the scene. So there's certain data that the police officer will take down at the scene, put it in the report, and there's even an attribution of fault, whether somebody, which unit was at fault. All that information in that officer's opinion is not based upon anything that he personally witnessed. So under Alabama rules of evidence, most of the time, the police report itself in its entirety is not admissible in evidence. You don't just get to go show it to a jury and say, well, here's the report, here's what happened.
And he said, you're at fault, so that's it, right?
Exactly,
No.
exactly. But Heath, there's portions of the report that can be admissible, right?
Yes, yeah. If you're a plaintiff in a case or a defendant in a case, and you have made a specific statement to a police officer, that statement can be admissible against you. So those are the one part of the police report that could be admissible. We will oftentimes use police reports in a trial to refresh an officer's recollection, but that report can't be admissible. And the officer can't testify to who they believe is at fault for a collision, even if they put that on the police report, because under Alabama law, there's only two entities that can determine fault if your case gets all the way to the trial. That's a judge or a jury. So the judge will exclude any mention of the officer by who they believe is at fault in almost all circumstances.
I love it. Okay, we've got callers waiting. We've got Demetrius from Huntsville. Hi, Demetrius. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Yes, ma'am. So my daughter was involved in a car accident in which she was not at fault.
Okay.
And so I'm calling to see, like, what exactly are your rights? Like, what are you entitled to? Is it necessary to get a lawyer? Like, if she doesn't have any injuries?
Okay.
Right.
If she's not injured, does she even need to go see a lawyer?
Well, I mean, what I tell everybody is, look, if you have a car wreck, right, and it's not your fault, it's worth your time to talk to a lawyer about the situation, even if you don't think you're injured, because you have a little bit of an idea about what you're dealing with. The first thing you're going to deal with is property damage. And that is if your vehicle's needs to be repaired or if your vehicle's a total loss. Insurance company, if it's a total loss, will pay you the fair market value of the vehicle at the time of the wreck. If it's a total loss, they'll pay you for the cost of repairs plus any diminution in value for the wreck. So those are two things that you need to do and understand. Most lawyers that do what we do will talk to you and explain to you what the process is and what needs to happen next before you talk to an insurance company. So even if you haven't suffered an injury or don't think you've suffered an injury, it's worth the time to talk to somebody right off the bat.
Yeah. Figuring out what that accident was worth, what the damage to the car,
Sure.
what you're entitled to, it may be worth going to talk to a lawyer and see.
And we tell people all the time, look, you may not need a lawyer, but you need some basic advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of times, their insurance company's not going to tell you what damages you're entitled to, and so they may pay your property damage. They may pay the value of your car. Well, they don't tell you, like Michael was saying, your car's lost some value. What's that worth? You've lost the use of your car. What's that worth? There are some things that they're not going to give you information about, but if you talk to a lawyer, 5-10 minutes, we can let you know and you can move on.
We've got Leslie on the line with a question from Valhermosa Spring. Hi, Leslie. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Yes, me and my grandson was walking down a back road over here in Valhermosa the night before Easter.
Okay.
And a car would come down the road, and all of a sudden she just swerved across the road. I jumped out of the way, and she hit my grandson.
Oh, gee.
Oh, gosh.
How hurt
Well-
was he? Is he okay?
He's in Huntsville Hospital. It broke his pelvis bone, broke both his femur bones
Oh,
and
gee.
his tibial bones.
I'm
wow.
sorry, Leslie.
And I'm just wondering, do we need to contact a lawyer before we talk to anybody or do anything?
I bet you do.
Well, you know, was there official police report made, or was it just
State troopers showed up and everything,
and
they
made the
was
report?
they was talking to her when I got an ambulance with my grandson
Right.
and left for the hospital.
Well, I mean, I think it does make sense to talk to an attorney about the situation. There's a number of things that you may or may not know. One is, did the other driver have insurance? What's the extent of that insurance? You know, there are other circumstances? Had they been, down there in Valhermosa Springs at the whiskey bar drinking? Is there other coverage that your grandson may be entitled to other than just the coverage, if there's any, from the other driver? You know, where does your grandson live? Is there automobile insurance coverage that would attach from his home place or your home place that would help him in this situation? You know, he's been seriously injured, and this situation, I think you need to investigate as thoroughly as you possibly can, and that requires talking to an attorney. You know, you may get to the end of the road, and an attorney says, "Look, you know, there's not much here we can do, but you need to exhaust that remedy." Or you could talk to a lawyer and they could find, you know, a lot of insurance, or they could find out a lot of circumstances that you didn't know and couldn't have found out, and that would end up being, you know, a sizable recovery.
Heath, what kind of things might you find out? I'm thinking if the driver was drinking or driving or texting or something, would that make a big difference?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, you know, you got two types of damages. There may be some punitive damages available to you. I mean, obviously, there's going to be a compensatory nature to the damages, just the medical bills, the pain and suffering, the mental anguish. But like Michael was saying, you find out that there was drinking somewhere, there was texting and driving, there was drug use, and that could open you up to punitive damages, which don't seek to compensate your grandson, but rather seeks to punish the wrongdoer and keep him from doing it again.
Okay, we're going to take a break. Be right back answering more of your questions. Leslie, I hope your grandson gets well soon. If you didn't get your questions answered tonight, here's how to get in touch with Michael Timberlake and Heath Brooks with Timberlake and League in Huntsville. They are personal injury attorneys. 256-536-0770 or 800-804-2502. The website is law-injury.com. And if you like them on Facebook, you can learn more about the law that way.
And Sharon practices family law right here in Huntsville, 256-539-7337, or find her on the web at sharonfamilylaw.com.
Thanks for all your calls and questions. And next week, it's Ask Us Anything night. Heath, see you next week.
See you later.